AI is changing everything, right? It's transforming whole industries. And that leads us with this massive question. Who's actually equipped to lead through all this change? It's not just about the tech, it's about a totally new kind of leadership. So today, we're going to dig into what that actually looks like, all based on some really solid academic research.
All right, so let's get right into it. And right off the bat, I want to be super clear about where this information comes from. What we're talking about today is a summary of a master's thesis by Dijana Kocev from the JKU Business School at Johannes Kepler University in Linz. So, this isn't just a bunch of random ideas. We're talking about a really focused, scholarly piece of work here.
So here's the game plan. First, we're going to tackle the why. Like, why does this research even matter? Then we'll get into the exact research question that drove the whole study and the rigorous method used to answer it. After that, we'll jump into the really interesting part, the 4 key leadership roles, and a whole new skill framework that came out of this. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with the big takeaway.
So you might be wondering, why a whole master's thesis on this topic? Well, think about it. Everyone is talking about AI and leadership, but a lot of it's just noise. It's all over the place. What this research set out to do was to cut through all that chatter and build one clear, structured picture based on what the actual academic literature says. It's kind of like having a giant jigsaw puzzle, but all the pieces are scattered across different boxes. You've got a piece over here on data literacy, another one over there about ethical leadership. They're all important, but no one's put them together. So this thesis, its whole goal was to find all those pieces and assemble them into one single coherent picture.
And to create that kind of focus, you need a really sharp central question. Every solid piece of research has one. And this thesis, it is built from the ground up to answer one very specific question.
And this is it. The entire study really boils down to this single question. What leadership skills are necessary to become an AI-integrated organization? That's the verbatim question that guided every single step of this research.
Okay, so how do you even begin to answer a question that big? Well, you can't just go out and do a few interviews. To do it properly, the author used a very specific, very rigorous academic method. And that's super important, because it means the results we're about to see aren't just someone's opinion. They're based on solid evidence.
So what was the method? It was a 3-stage systematic literature review. It's a highly structured process for finding, evaluating, and then putting together all the existing research on a topic. The key thing to know is that it's transparent, and anyone could repeat it. And that, right there, is the hallmark of good science.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, the initial search across major academic databases turned up, get this, 4,008 articles. Yeah, over 4,000. That is a mountain of information to go through, and it just shows you how wide a net they cast at the beginning.
But of course, it's not about how many you find, it's about finding the right ones. So the researcher used some really strict criteria to filter everything. We're talking only peer-reviewed articles from top-tier journals. They had to be in English, and they had to be laser-focused on that intersection of artificial intelligence and leadership. This process was all about separating the wheat from the chaff, making sure only the highest quality stuff made it through.
So, after all that filtering, from over 4,000 articles, how many were left? Just 25. I mean, think about that. It's a fantastic example of the scientific method, right? You cast this huge net, and then you systematically filter and filter until you're left with this core group of truly relevant, high-quality studies. And those 25 papers, that's what the entire analysis is built on.
All right, so now for the payoff. What did the analysis of those 25 core papers actually find? Well, for starters, it showed that leadership in an AI-driven world isn't just one job. The research uncovered 4 totally distinct roles that leaders have to play if they want to be effective.
So what the literature points to is that you can't just be a leader. You have to be a combination of 4 things. You have to be a mediator, an enabler, a moderator, and a culture shaper. Let's break down what each of those actually means.
And here's the really crucial part. A successful leader has to wear all of these hats, sometimes all at once. As a mediator, you're the translator between the tech teams and the business strategy folks. As an enabler, you're making sure your team has the resources they need to actually get things done. As a moderator, you're dealing with the human side of things, people's fears, their hopes, and building trust. And finally, as a culture shaper, you're building an environment where it's okay to experiment and learn.
Okay, so if those are the roles you need to play, what skills do you actually need to pull them off? This question is really the heart of the thesis, and the answer starts by looking at a classic, foundational model of leadership.
Way back in 1955, a researcher named Robert Katz came up with this really elegant model. He said leadership skills basically fall into three buckets: technical, human, and conceptual. And what this thesis found is that, believe it or not, that model is still super relevant today. But it desperately needs an upgrade for the age of AI.
So what does that upgrade look like? Well, technical skills today, that's not about just IT support. It's about having strategic AI awareness. Human skills are more important than ever. We're talking emotional intelligence, clear communication, and building trust around these new technologies. And conceptual skills? That's all about seeing the big picture, using systems thinking, and being mentally agile enough to keep up.
But here's where things get really interesting, and where the thesis makes a major contribution. The analysis found that those three old buckets, they're not enough anymore. There's a whole new category of skills emerging that is completely unique to the challenges that AI brings.
And here they are. These are the brand new skills for our time. Things like transformational agility and ecosystem orchestration. And think about human-AI teaming. That's not just using a new software, it's about learning to work with an AI, like a true teammate. Or hybrid decision integration. That's the art of knowing when to listen to the algorithm and when to listen to your own human intuition. This is truly the new frontier of leadership.
Okay, let's bring this all home. What is the single biggest takeaway from all of this research?
So after all that, after looking at all these roles and all these different skills, you've got to be asking, right? Is there one perfect profile for an AI leader? Is there just a checklist I can follow that's going to guarantee success?
And the answer that comes out of this research is a resounding no. There's no magic formula. The main conclusion here is that effective AI leadership is a dynamic balancing act. The right combination of all these skills depends entirely on your organization's unique context, its strategy, its culture, and its technology. It seems the most important skill of all is knowing which of these other skills to pull out of your toolbox and when.